I have basically no nostalgic feelings for games on the N64. I have very little experience with the system. I was a PlayStation 2 kid growing up. Technically, there were PlayStation 1 games in the house growing up as well, and technically I have a lot of experience with them as well, but PlayStation 2 was my primary system. I never took part in the console wars back in the day. I made friends with everyone and anyone who would talk to me. Among the friends I had, I was the PlayStation kid. I had an Xbox friend, and I had a Nintendo friend. I played games on their systems when I went over to their homes, but they weren't games that I played every single day in order to grow any form of attachment to them. Who cares? Why am I mentioning all this? To drive home the point that there's absolutely no nostalgia goggles when I talk about most games on Nintendo consoles. There are exceptions, of course, as there are with everything, but not very many. The first game I bought when I purchased my N64 was Hexen. Nothing in particular drew me to it. It was cheap, and I liked the cartridge. It had some cool art on it. That's about it. I knew nothing about it going in, which is the way I like it when I pick up some of these older games. I know now that it has several ports to PlayStation, Sega Saturn, and PC OSs, but I needed an N64 title. That's the only reason I have it on this system. And while I'm not used to the three-prong controller of doom and gloom, in the beginning I had a great time with it. That's because it's basically just Doom, but magic instead of guns. And also because I have the clear jungle green controller that I just really wanted to use. I love this aesthetic of clear electronics, especially jungle green. I'd love to have a jungle green N64, even the clear original Xbox, but I'm just yapping at this point. The novelty of the whole ordeal wore off after a few days, but I'll get to that. The plot of Hexen, if you can give it one, has the same design philosophy as most games on the Doom engine back in the day. It exists for those who care, but the main draw of the game is the gameplay. The story is just an excuse to give the player a reason as to why there are a bunch of demons and shit everywhere. I've always been on the fence about this because I agree that sometimes a story is unnecessary for a game to be good, but at the same time, a story, and I do mean the most basic of stories, can enhance a player's feeling while playing a game. Do you need a reason to kill a bunch of demons? No, not really. Just tell me to get to the end of the level while killing every enemy in sight, and as long as the game is fun, I'm good. But I also can't deny the power of motivation that a story can give. There are demons in the tower invading across the land. Kill them. If that's a good enough excuse for Doom, it's a good enough excuse for Hexen. Something Hexen has over Doom is the ability to pick classes that have slightly different stats. Functionally, it's all the same game no matter which class you pick, but a class does determine a few factors, such as the amount of damage you'll deal, the amount of damage you can take, and how much mana you have. The warrior is pretty simple. It deals the most damage and has a high armor rating, but doesn't have a ton of magic reserve. Cleric is a balance of all three stats, and mage has low damage, low armor, but high mana. Or at least that's the impression that I'm getting off of these stat meters. I'm not really sure how much that transfers to their base stats and how much that actually affects how one plays the game. It's probably just down to the weapons they use. Maybe it's both. I don't know. The look and feel of Hexen has a certain satisfaction that hits just right for me in a way that Doom doesn't. It's the little things. Punching enemies has a sort of faux combo system to it. It's not really, I don't think, but it feels like it does. Just a little jab right hook combo from the warrior to kill off a demon, and that right hook is what really sells it for me. The three classes have their own sets of weapons that they start with and can find throughout the levels. The first level sees us in the realm of 7 portals. It's called as such due to the fact that there are 7 total portals in the level, 6 of which that will lead you to the various challenges that the level provides, while the final portal is the exit. The trials are the guardians of ice, fire, and steel. It's an incredibly clever series of areas that involves hopping in and out of each of the elemental rooms to solve puzzles that all have keys to each other's portals. For example, to open the fire trial, we have to enter the ice trial to figure out which portal will open the chamber door to the fire trial entrance. From the fire trial, we navigate to the crumbling bridge and gain access to the chamber that opens the steel trial. We also need to activate various levers and switches that unlock not only secret areas in each other's trials, but to access certain points within the 7 portals nexus. There's no penultimate boss to prepare for this area, which I found to be a little surprising. However, upon reaching the Shadow Wood and its related areas, I got very lost. I like the design of the area. I like how, so far, every area feels distinct, like they had a theme in mind and they stuck with it. And the Shadow Woods theme seems to be getting turned around in the woods at night with demons hot on your tail. If that's really the idea they're going for, then they nailed it. Yet I can't help but feel like I'm scouring every nook, every cranny of this English muffin for one item that I need to progress. In order to move on, you need to find 3 keys: the horn key, the cave key, and the swamp key. There's one door of each in every area as well. It feels as if every time I feel like I've found the way forward, I need one of the titular keys. In order to muddy the swamps a little further, there's also a castle key, which accesses a door in the castle, which I thought would give me access to another key somewhere, but instead it just gave me a rook. This rook icon is very useful, don't get me wrong. It grants me invulnerability to my class, but it doesn't help with progression. There are a lot of false paths that lead seemingly nowhere when you don't have the necessary key item to progress. For example, I'm in the swamp scouring for any of the necessary keys. In the swamp, there's a little hut with a locked door that says it's locked from the inside. I thought that perhaps I would just look around it and maybe there's a secret door somewhere. And when I didn't find one, I figured maybe there'd be a teleporter that leads me inside it somewhere later on. Upon turning around in the first little porch room, I noticed a button. Pressing it unlocks another button by the moat in the nearby castle. Pushing the drawbridge button, yes, it's a drawbridge, I gain access to the castle. In the castle lies a well as a door which needs a button to be opened. There's also the cave door, which I lack the key for. Down this well is another button which will give the message, you hear a door open somewhere. Initially, I associate this button with the locked door in the castle, but when that door doesn't open, I remember, oh yeah, the guard hut. Inside the guard hut is the castle key, which opens a locked door in the central tower of the castle. Inside the tower is the rook icon, and smashing the knight armors reveals yet another button. Pressing it opens another door within the castle, which leads down to a dining hall, seemingly another dead end, yet when I peek into the hearths, I notice yet another button. Pressing it opens a false wall within the hearth, which leads up a small set of stairs up to another locked door that requires the horn key. That's quite a mouthful, but this has been my entire experience with this level, and not just in the castle. As it turns out, the horn key just happens to be in the wasteland, which is the most labyrinthine area in this level. I found it by just scouring every area for paths that I might have missed. Chat, I don't know why I called y'all chat. Y'all don't know how demoralizing it is to go back to the castle with the horn key, open the horn door, and find a switch that gives the message, you have solved 1/6 of the puzzle in the Shadow Wood. I've been scouring for nearly 2 hours. It's not like the 7 portals. In the 7 portals, I always felt a sense of forward progress. There were a few dead ends here and there, but getting back on track was easily done. And I'll be honest, I caved a little. I got a little hintsy doodle online. Controversial, I know. The only hint that I got was that the castle key was required to get the swamp key, which meant that it had to be in the castle somewhere. Not only in the castle, but in the hearth room, since that's the only room that requires the use of the castle key to access. I don't know how the fuck anyone's supposed to figure this out, because I've been walking around trying to open the walls the whole time, because I know that the Doom engine hides secrets behind these false walls. I wasn't expecting progress to be behind a wall that looks like any other normal wall, as opposed to a wall with a decal on it. I guess the only real hint you have that something is here is the fact that the hearth, which contains the swamp key, is the only hearth that doesn't have a fire. There's nothing else to indicate that the back wall is fake, especially since the hearth right across from this hearth has a button to open its false ass. The cave key is even worse. It's in the caves, but to get access to it, you have to fall down a random hole in a corner in a random spot in the cave. It's dark as shit. I have no clue how the fuck anyone found this. Maybe it's because I'm playing on N64 and looking down is a pain in the ass. I don't know. My initial thought was that the keys had to be within their titular sections. The problem with this is that every time I would open a door with the horn key, which was the easiest key to find, it would lead me to a portal that led back to the wastes. This would reinforce this idea in my head that all of these keys had to be in the wastes somewhere. And it was clear that there was still more to do within the waste itself. I just didn't have access to the other keys in order to do what I needed to do. But no, all progress was completely halted until these other 2 keys that were hidden somewhere within the colon of Satan's asshole in bumfuck Indiana were found. If the theme of the level is truly getting lost in the woods, then there are better ways to achieve that effect than just picking a pixel and shifting the color to a slightly lighter shade of green. I'm exaggerating for effect, obviously, but it does feel like these key locations were just given incredibly obscure hiding spots that force you to pick up stones just as something to do. Just try literally anything until something works, even if it sounds stupid. Rub your dick along every possible wall just in case there's a hole somewhere that you can't see because it's dark as shit. This level does have a boss, and I don't know if it was the fatigue of the Shadow Woods, the N64 controls, or if the boss just sucks. I'm sorry, I know things got really negative after the first level, but the winged demon imp creature thing that was the boss for this area wasn't that great. The boss arena is a ring of cliffs surrounding a lake of lava in which the imp creature circles a center island, shooting a large amount of fireballs, while brown snake things also shoot fireballs at you from around the ring. The imp creature isn't difficult. It does high damage, however, and compounding its damage with the damage of the snake lizard things can lead to some really quick deaths. My biggest issue was navigating the ring with N64 controls. I'm sure this is cake on PC, or maybe on PlayStation even, but on N64, everything is controlled by a single joystick through tank controls with strafing mapped to the Z button on the back. It could just be me. I really don't have the biggest sample size when it comes to controlling N64 games. As I progress through each of the subsequent levels, I'm slowly being hit with the realization that I'm probably playing the worst version of Hexen. I don't have any experience on whether this is actually a good version or not. I genuinely don't know what the consensus is. What I do know is that I've played Doom exclusively on PC, and I'm just not used to these controls. In the beginning, it wasn't too bad. The levels were fairly simple, and I had plenty of room to bonk my head on the walls until I got used to things. Every session's turned into something of an ordeal to play. It takes 100% of my concentration not to bump into shit later on. It takes me a little extra time just to line up to walk in a straight line. The levels have also gotten significantly longer, with puzzles to unlock access to puzzles to unlock access to even more puzzles. I thought it was demoralizing seeing 1/6 of a puzzle being completed, but gang, it gets so much worse when I see 1/9 of a puzzle being completed. I still like the aspect of having to traverse between sub-levels in order to fully complete the overall puzzle. I just found myself getting mentally drained the longer the level went on, with seemingly no end in sight. My inexperience with this control scheme is also making things way much more frustrating when my mind knows fully well what I need to do. Just shoot the guy, just make the jump, just cross the gap. But all these wires keep getting crossed in between what I'm used to and what I'm actually doing. It's sometime after finishing the third world that I'm wondering if I bit off a bit more than I could chew when it comes to playing an FPS on a single-stick system. I'm taking 2, 3, even 4 hours on some of these zones, with me trying to concentrate so much on what my thumb is doing and when to hold the Z button, and if I'm even holding the Z button at all. And if I am, then I need to remember to stop holding it when I want to switch weapons so I don't accidentally switch items. And I found myself getting worn out and frustrated more than anything else, taking longer and longer between sessions because I found I just don't want to concentrate so hard on something for that long of a time when all I want to do is kill demons and shit. I have an immense amount of respect to anybody who can play Doom, Hexen, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, what have you, on this system, because this shit's hard. I'm learning how to really use this controller in this genre when I'm nearing my 30s. I don't have the benefit of growing up with such a control scheme. While I think I'm a little better at it than when I started, it's just one of those things that's hard to tell as the levels get more and more complex. And it wasn't until I got to the Castle of Grief where I started to let my frustration for this fucking controller get to me. I'm fully aware that it's a skill issue type of situation where I just don't have enough experience with this genre on this system with this controller that every time I want to move anywhere, I start bumping into walls and taking hits that I shouldn't be taking. And since the levels become much harder later on, becoming more complex and dropping less health items, I got to this point where I'm just running face first into a wall of fuck completely unable to make progress because I don't have the coordination not to get slapped by a demon's fat cock every 9 seconds. So I switched to the PC version, and right away, all of my problems dissipated completely. I loved it immediately the moment I accessed the Raven Vault, which has so many concept art images and sprites and everything that I've seen so far. It just looks really fucking cool. Now, it's probably not fair to judge the N64 port alongside a newly released PC version, but I don't fucking care. This version is infinitely more customizable, and I don't feel like my brain is melting or getting caught within its own gears trying to figure out how to walk in a straight line. There's also the choice to pick whichever character I want mid-level, so I got to try out all of the other characters without having to start all over again. I'm still bumping into walls, the game's fast as fuck, but the fact that I have the ability to correct any bump in less than half of a second makes the feel of the game that much better for me. My issue with some of the level design in the second world is still present. That hasn't changed. That's just a game problem, not a port issue. And the constant goalpost moving is still irksome when I feel like I'm making progress, but when in reality, I'm just solving a puzzle to gain access to solving another puzzle which needs to be solved before I can access another puzzle to open a door which in and of itself is a puzzle that needs to be solved. Now, I like puzzles as much as the next guy, but that's a lot of fucking puzzles in a row. I don't think it's necessarily a system issue, as in, because of my experience with Hexen on N64 wasn't the best, now I think that the entire system is garbage. Not at all. I have Ocarina of Time. I've played Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie on this thing. They're much more of a pleasant experience. Maybe it's because I'm familiar with those genres on N64 than I am with a boomer shooter, and maybe it also has to do with those games being more designed for such a controller, instead of trying to force the controller to work around the game. It just isn't very pleasant. I wish my positivity held throughout my time playing on cartridge, since I was very excited to play it. While I do believe that with enough time I could beat Hexen on N64, I just don't want to when there's another version out there that feels better for me to play. Not necessarily easier, it just feels better. So I replayed the entire game on PC, but this time as a mage, and I'm kinda mad about it. The mage is so much cooler than the warrior for me. I mean, look at this man's hands. Look at how he's holding that ball of lightning ready to strike at any time. It's fucking awesome. I'm wondering if I could have had a slightly easier time if I played mage on cartridge, but I don't have the time to replay nearly 8 hours of what I've already done. It wasn't strictly 8 hours of playtime as much as it was 3 or 4 hours of being really bad at moving around and resetting a bunch while trying to figure out which buttons did what because I'm overstimulated. I gotten back to the Castle of Grief in about 2 hours with less Mr. Rossetti happening. Maybe one day I can go back to Hexen on N64. Ideas to be tortured on stream, I guess. Please don't make me do that. Before I made the swap, I had gotten about halfway through the castle, and I'm really glad I had because there are a lot of really tight spaces the deeper you venture within these walls. I appreciate the change of pace as well. Instead of solving 1/16 of a puzzle in various areas, we were to fix a clock. I don't know why that specifically to open access to the castle proper, but I'm also not paid to question these things. In fact, I'm not getting paid at all. Once inside, we still gotta find keys, but we also gotta find books to place on a shelf, which will give us a skull to place on a statue, which will lead us to the sewers. This area in particular is why I'm glad I made the swap, since there's a ton of really tight spaces, which would have seen my ass bonking on literally every single wall and getting hit by every single swamp beast. These guys hurt a lot and I fucking hate them. But since I'm on PC, it was no real issue. My mood has improved immensely since making the swap. I had managed to get through the Castle of Grief in about 2 hours with liberal exploration. By the end of the castle, there's a boss. It's a repeat of the boss of the previous area, but I don't think I mind too much. I had fun fighting him. I didn't bring him up before because I was too busy bitching about my skill issue. The Heretic is one of the toughest enemies in the entire game. Each class has a different level of difficulty while fighting him. I have a sample size of 2, and I think the mage had the easiest time dealing with him due to his range. Maybe the cleric is the easiest of all. Power of God or something, I don't know. But I played cleric for a short time and I didn't like him very much. The Heretic is a red demon in black robes who has 3 spells that I noticed. One that shoots bouncing balls of fire, one that shoots a bunch of purple balls, and one that summons orbs that protect him from damage. Balls. He also has the ability to summon lesser cultists who fly around and shoot a volley of spells. Ads in this type of fight don't bother me whatsoever, because the name of the game is to keep moving and shoot shit. Our kit, meaning the kit of every character, is capable of maintaining a lot of distance and speed from just about every enemy. When it comes to the bosses I've fought so far, which is a grand sample of 2, the Heretic is the better of the two. The imp thing feels as if it's best fought with literally anybody else but the warrior, unless you have the flight item, since it's significantly more difficult for the warrior to do any range damage. The final level is the Necropolis, and I like it very much. It's a simple puzzle, which I'm very grateful for after going through 3 levels of a lot of puzzles after puzzles after puzzles. It's not that I don't like puzzles, but my brain is just tired. Booting up the PC version of Hexen has also taught me that there's a lot more of a plot than what I was initially presented with. Namely, there are 3 masters in the world of Hexen, which is a realm in the cosmos or some shit. I didn't catch their names, but I don't think they matter. One was a warrior, one a cleric, and the other a mage, much like the party that ventures in after them. They became tempted by the power of Korax, a demon serpent rider who's evil or some shit. He's causing all of the strife and death we've seen on our journey thus far. We've technically also spoken to the guy. He's the face on the wall that taunts the player at the start of every level.
Greetings, mortal. Are you ready to die?
He's very cordial for something that looks like it lives under the stairs. The goal of the level is to find each of our dark counterparts and kill them for an artifact which will take us to Korax's lair. All 3 of them are pretty hard, as they use the strongest weapon that you have in your arsenal relative to that class. In other words, they can easily one-shot you from 100 to 0. Maybe these ultimate weapons are incredibly good, but I found that arc lightning is the most consistent form of damage the mage could deal, and that it could stack with itself, so I just spat lightning at them until they all died. The easiest of the 3 was probably the warrior, due to his arena being concave as fuck. The man is a stationary target. The other 2 have walls around them before they appear, so the fight actually has to start first. I think the cleric is the harder of the other 2, which is due to his arena. They all can be difficult due to their weapons alone, but keeping distance means survival. The cleric's arena is much more closed off and maze-like than either the warrior or the mage. Once all 3 are dead and their artifacts are in place, all we have to do now is challenge Korax. The lead up to the fight is pretty cool. It's dark, and there's only one portal forward. The path to it is lined with dozens of corpses on pikes on a bridge. Very Vladimir Tepesh of you, Korax. The fight with Korax is the same as every other fight. He'll shoot 6 elemental balls at you, but the arena's huge. I think enemies were supposed to show up as the fight goes on, but they ended up showing up afterwards. Methinks arc lightning might be OP as shit if it kills the final boss in less than 30 seconds. Technically, a second phase happens after killing all of the enemies in the room and going to the next one, but it's the exact same as the first, except the enemies that I thought would show up didn't, and Korax died even quicker. My journey with Hexen has been a wild one and an educational one. I know now that boomer shooters on the N64 are not for me. Maybe they're for someone, and I love that for them, but I found it to be exhausting. But Hexen, despite some of its flaws in level design, is fantastic. I love its aesthetic, I love its art style, I love that it's something more of a continuous style of boomer shooter than what Doom is. Once I made a swap to a platform that I knew, everything clicked right into place, and I found it quite easy to just shut my brain off and go. Really quick, I know that this has gone on probably long enough, but I wanted to throw in a quick little segment about Heretic, the game that came before, since it's all part of a bundle. I love this shit too, but there's a stark difference between Heretic and Hexen that makes me really appreciate how much the game has changed. Heretic feels like a really well-made Doom mod, but Hexen feels like another game just made in the Doom engine. Yet all that being said, Heretic's story concept is a lot cooler to me. I can't think of any other game where you play as an ex-cultist fighting off the demons you helped summon, in addition to your own brethren. That is metal as fuck, and is a genuinely interesting twist on a worn-out trope of cults doing the shit that they do. My name is Box. Please like and subscribe and have a wonderful day.